The IndyCar World Series with Husqvarna Forest and Garden Products. Firestone, the science of safety. And Valvoline motor oil.
Hello and welcome to Cleveland, Ohio for round 10 of the IndyCar Series. I'm James Allen. Nice to have you along again. The temporary track on the Burke Lakefront Airport usually provides one of the most thrilling races of the season. And with the top 14 cars separated by just 0.6 of a second on qualifying today, it shouldn't disappoint us. This 90-lap, 213-mile race will be critical for the principal championship contenders. Jimmy Vasser leads Al Unser Jr. by just 12 points, with Michael Andretti a further 14 points behind. The other potential danger man, Gilles de Ferran, lies fifth, 28 points adrift of Vasser. We're into the second half of the 1996 season, and although Vasser has won 4 times, he has not had the consistency of high points finishes to be able to open a comfortable cushion. The good news for him today, however, is that he starts from pole position, with Al Unser Jr. just 16th and Michael Andretti 12th. Vasser's teammate Alex Zanardi qualified second, buoyed up, no doubt, by his maiden IndyCar win at Portland last weekend. Penske's going through the longest win drought in 2 decades of IndyCar racing. As we look at the point standings after 9 of 16 races, Penske has not won a race this season, and in fact they haven't won a race since Vancouver last September. Nevertheless, Al Unser Jr.'s consistency sees him second in the championship. His teammate Paul Tracy, though, is down in 9th. Bad news for Unser, though. No one has ever won in Cleveland from lower than 7th on the grid. Let's take a look at the road to the championship. Jimmy Vasser roared off at the start of the year, taking the opening win at Homestead, cruising to the win at Surfers Paradise. A late break saw him win in Long Beach, the US 500 after his teammate blew an engine. Growing larger in Vasser's mirrors has been Al Unser Jr., however. Little Al never far away. That's the race to the championship. 3 poles, 4 wins, and 4 top 5s. Has finished every single race of the year so far, Jimmy Vasser. Al Unser Jr., 5 top 5s, no wins, no poles. And as we said, remarkable to think that for the first time in 2 decades, Penske hasn't won a race. Looking now at Alex Zanardi, the winner of the Portland race. He and Vasser really went head-to-head for this pole position on Saturday. Vasser thought he had it, but Zanardi thought he had it, but Vasser managed to pip him. Taking a look back at Portland now, Michael Andretti lost 2 laps replacing an ECU. Paul Tracy spun off the track. Jimmy Vasser, in a rainstorm on slick tyres, also went off the track, and he dropped down a couple of laps as well. Zanardi battled with Unser Jr. while Unser Jr. was on wet, but when it dried out, the slicks of Alexander Zanardi worked for him. He came through to score his maiden win of his IndyCar career. Gilles de Ferran carrying one of our cameras today at this Cleveland circuit. Of course, he knows all about this track. On pole here last year and cruising, well, not cruising, but fighting hard in a good position to win the race when he was taken out by backmarker Scott Pruitt. And it was Jacques Villeneuve who came second today in the Formula One race in France, who came through to win that day in Cleveland. And the man carrying the players' colours this year, Greg Moore, who's taken over from Jacques Villeneuve with that sponsorship, is in 4th place on the grid. Herta 3rd, fantastic performance for him. Ribeiro 5th and Fernandez 6th.
There is
won
the
the
grid.
race. His teammate Alex Zanardi is alongside, won a week ago at Portland. In row 2, Brian Herta. Second place here last year was his best career finish. And Greg Moore, this equals his best start in an IndyCar. In row 3, Andre Ribeiro. And Adrian Fernandez still looking for his first podium finish this year. In row 4, it's Gilles de Ferran, who equaled his best 96 finish with a second last week in Portland. And Paul Tracy, who won from the pole here in 93. In row 5, Mauricio Guzman, his best start this season on a road course. And Christian Fittipaldi, who's moved to 4th in the points after 2 consecutive podium finishes. In row 6, Bobby Rahal, his first career win came here in 1982. And Scott Pruitt. Row 7, Michael Andretti, the 91 winner here. And Robbie Gordon. The 8th row, Mark Blundell. And Al Unser Jr., who has twice won here. Row 9, Raul Boesel and Parker Johnstone. The 10th row, Stefan Johansson and Emerson Fittipaldi, the only active 3-time winner of the Cleveland IndyCar Grand Prix. Row 11, Eddie Lawson and Roberto Moreno. The 12th row is Hiro Matsushita and Jeff Krosnoff. And the 13th row is Juan Fangio and P.J. Jones. So the cars on the pace lap now. As they move to the end of that, we'll look at the race analysis. 2.3 miles around here. It's a 10-turn temporary circuit. 90 laps is the scheduled distance. And they're heading down the pit straight and heading right toward Danny Sullivan. Danny?
Well, they look good coming down here, but I can guarantee you, having been in that position before, they just want to get out of here good and clean, hopefully have a good runoff where they can pass somebody going into turn 1 or not lose a spot going into turn.
So now they make that move through the corner and head on to the straight that will bring them out onto the front stretch and toward the flag. As the acceleration begins, green flag comes out, and here we go at Cleveland. They come 6, 7, 8 wide into the corner. And we had a touch back in the field, but it doesn't look like it's caused us any problems. There's the field coming through, and they appear to be through cleanly at this point. So the race underway here at Cleveland with Zanardi jumping out in front of the pole position holder, Jimmy Vasser. Vasser drops back into second place. Out along the lakeside. Now they turn inward, back inland once again. And out toward the east loop. It's actually a series of right-angle corners. Jimmy Vasser runs in second. Zanardi is the leader. Vasser, of course, is the points leader. There's Paul Tracy, who sits now in third place on this, the very first lap. And down along the pit straight, first, second, and third right together. Brian Herta has dropped into fourth. First pass down the pit straight. And now on the main stretch, they swing out to take the corner. Ribeiro is just behind Brian Herta in fifth place. And a report from the course that Jeff Krosnoff is running rough and apparently not able to keep at the pace. We'll keep up to date on that one as well. There's Brian Herta. You heard tell of his problems this weekend, but many feel that this could in fact be his day. He's not yet won in the IndyCars and is more than overdue. Andre Ribeiro currently fifth, just behind him, Gilles de Ferran, 2 Brazilians. A lot being said about de Ferran as well. There you get a good look at de Ferran's bright yellow Pennzoil car. A lot being said that perhaps he will be going to Formula One at the end of this year, though thus far de Ferran has denied that and in fact has gone so far as to say this is the most competitive series that he knows of and he wants to be where the competition is. Well, let's go on board with Gilles de Ferran running in fifth place as Zanardi has come across, completing lap 1 as the leader of the race, followed by his teammate Jimmy Vasser and then Paul Tracy. And there's one of the problems you'll see all day as we look down on this airport track. If they just barely drop a wheel off, it's very dry here and the dust kicks up and makes visibility absolutely terrible for anyone behind you. Down one of the runways, there's that east loop, a right-hander, and a third right-hander. Though because of the width of the runway, it's less of a turn than it could be. First, second, and third, you see the interval, and you can see that the two Ganassi cars running first and second, those red cars, are able to stretch out a bit on Paul Tracy. Then comes Herta, then Ribeiro, DeFerrin, Fernandez, and Bobby Rahal. And here is Ribeiro working on Herta as Herta gets past very quickly, comes inside and makes an interesting move going into that first turn.
Well, he did, but
And here comes Herta back around, yeah.
the problem is when you go inside like that, you come out wide, the other guy comes up the inside, and he's got a runoff, and the runway's so wide, he can repass you.
You were saying that first turn here can be very deceptive.
Well, I can because it's a very wide runway.
Here comes Ribeiro again.
Back in there, goes into a narrow corner onto a big runway, so you got to be really good in that narrow section.
So Ribeiro and Herta exchange positions on the corners, and now DeFerrin is closing down on Herta.
Well, it looks to me like that the cars behind him are a little bit faster. They're all trying to find to get away around Brian Herta. He's holding them off pretty good, but I don't know for how long.
They're all jammed up behind Herta right now. And again, the leaders come across the line into the first corner.
And you see how right there, just went out of our screen right there, the yellow and red car, he's pulled out a little from Brian. Brian locked up a brake right there.
This is on the nose of Bobby Rahal. That's Fernandez just ahead. And Rahal ducks inside Fernandez. Boy, nice little pass there.
And you saw that brake, the lock of the front tire come up. That looked like it was from Fernandez, though.
Right behind that battle is Michael Andretti. You're now on board with him. Fernandez, Rahal just ahead. See DeFerrin moving into the corner.
See him throw up that little dust right there. That goes on the track, makes the track a little bit slicker for the other guy.
So on board with Michael Andretti, who currently runs ninth. Top of the order remains Zanardi, then Jimmy Vasser, then Paul Tracy, and Andre Ribeiro as we are underway. 4 laps complete in Cleveland.
Our World Series live with
Husqvarna Forest and Garden Products.
Welcome back to Cleveland. Zanardi is leading from Vasser and Tracy. And one of the victims at the start there was Greg Moore, went down from 4th down into 10th place, currently running just behind Michael Andretti. This Burke Lakefront track is arguably the best spectator track on the whole IndyCar series. You can see the whole track from the grandstands, but it's a tough circuit on cars and drivers. It's very bumpy and usually extremely hot and humid. It's 90 degrees today, 50% chance of a rainstorm. It's traditionally a race of very high attrition, but also it usually provides some of the best wheel-to-wheel action in the championship. Now as a rerun of the start, you can see Greg Moore there, and he's one of the ones that lost out. Just take a look at what happens to him. Let's go back now and rejoin Paul Page and Danny Sullivan.
Tell you what, there's team orders, Gary Gerald. Sure sounds like it, Jack. A couple of other interesting notes relating to the early laps of this race. Robbie Gordon, who started 14th, is a frustrated race driver. We understand that IndyCar officials are watching him for heavy bottoming, but he was on the radio to his team owner, Derek Walker, complaining that he'd been cut off nearly 3 times, and Derek was doing his best to try to get him to calm down and settle into a race pace. Remember the problems that Robbie had last year at the end of this race with Michael Andretti. One other quick update. Tough break for P.J. Jones. His crew reporting a misfire in the Toyota power plant for Dan Gurney.
Robbie Gordon in the Valvoline number 5 sits now in 14th place. Let's go to Gil DeFerrin, who is continuing to rest in 6th, but rest is an inappropriate word. He is locked in a battle right now with Brian Herta. Brian Herta's teammate Bobby Rahal, by the way, started 11th and is now 7th. And Greg Moore started 4th and has fallen all the way back to 10th. So there's DeFerrin in pursuit of Herta.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Paul. One of the things there is Gil DeFerrin's probably not as concerned because you see right in front of those 2 cars, car at the left of your screen that just went out of vision. That car is Ribeiro. He's not really getting away from him that much, so he wants to make sure he picks his right spot. And as we see, Brian Herta's a little quicker in some sections. So you really got to pick and choose where you're going to do this.
So DeFerrin continues that pursuit. There's P.J. Jones in the pits with an early on problem, but it looks like they're at least going to try and work with it.
Well, when you're in a development program, don't forget, and you've got an engine problem, you've got to try to fix it. You can't just put it away on the trailer and go home because you don't know exactly what the problem is. So you want to make sure you try to fix it, if nothing else, and now use the race as a test session.
Boy, look at DeFerrin close on him under braking, though. He's getting into the corners a lot harder than Herta, but Herta is able to accelerate off of the corners. Zanardi leads it, Vassar second, Paul Tracy third. Fourth is Andre Ribeiro. Nothing changes there. We're focusing on the battle between Brian Herta and Gil DeFerrin, and that's a battle for the fifth position. Very hot out here, very humid. You add to that the roughness of the course. For these drivers, it's going to be a long day.
Well, that's right. That's a very good point. These guys are in good physical condition. A lot of them work out. They maintain a workout program. They're in good shape, but they realize this is a long, hard race. It's physical. It's hot, and they really want to pace themselves to get toward the end. Don't forget, we're also in a point situation. We're getting toward, 6 races to go in the season. These guys want to score points. They don't want to give it away early on.
The championship so very important. Greg Moore started 4th, fell back to 10th. Gary Gerald, does he have a problem?
Crew says he does not have a problem, Paul. Tony Brunetti said we wanted to take a very conservative stance. We definitely wanted to make sure that we got through turn number 1. So they played it very cautious. As a consequence, he lost positions. They say the car's working fine. They are not concerned.
Just ahead of Greg Moore, you get a glimpse from time to time of Michael Andretti. Now we're on board with Michael. That's Fernandez just ahead. Good comparison of power plants here. Honda power plant up there in Fernandez's car. Michael is carrying, of course, the Ford Cosworth, which has such a great string of victories to its credit.
And, of course, right behind him is Greg Moore with a Mercedes power.
Let's go down pit side, Jack Arute.
Well, let's keep you abreast of what the heat is like down here, guys. We did a track temperature just before the start of the race. It was 125 degrees. The readouts we're getting now, it's jumped already by 5 degrees. Now, for the crew members, it's not too bad because there's a brief breeze. It's not quite as hot as, let's say, Rio, where we had inside suit temperatures of 140 degrees plus, but it is still very hot, and I would think, Danny Sullivan, that would come into play in terms of tire conservation as well with this very abrasive racing surface.
It is, Jack, but one thing that we've seen, the times are a little bit down from last year, and I think that reduction in downforce has hurt the cars, so they're probably not going through the corners quite as quick. But everything here, brakes, tires, and your energy is going to be conserved toward the end of the race. That's when all the action seems to have happened in the years past.
Greg Moore, from time to time, can close on Michael Andretti. Doesn't seem to be able to get around him. You saw also lying back just a few cars back was the car of P.J. Jones. Apparently, they've got it back on course, but still, he is now well off the pace. Let's go up forward in the field. On board Jimmy Vassar now as he tries to chase down his teammate, last week's winner, Alex Zanardi. And look at the interval that Zanardi has been able to pull out in just 13 laps here at the Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, round 16 of the IndyCar Series.
Back to the IndyCar Series, live with Valvoline Motor Oil.
Welcome back to Cleveland. We're working lap 17, and that is DeFerrin going down the inside of Brian Herta. Herta looks as though he locked up, and DeFerrin now up into 5th place, past Brian Herta. Confirmation there after lap 15. Alex Zanardi leads by about 5 seconds over Jimmy Vassar, then it's Paul Tracy. Andre Ribeiro. Quick update on Mark Blundell, currently running, I believe, in 21st place. Qualified 15th. Found it very physical here at the Cleveland Raceway. Yes, 21st for Blundell. Very physical indeed in qualifying, so he just wasn't really strong enough to get all the speed out of the car that he really would have wanted from that Visa Pac West car. So Mark Blundell having a tough time, but he's made of stern stuff, and he's been through some pretty hot races on some bumpy tracks in his past. A recent run of good results for Mark. He was 8th in Portland, 5th in the US 500. So he's been running strong, and hopefully he'll be able to get something. We're looking at about 30 laps for the pit stop window. Around about every 30 laps they'll have to take fuel and tyres. And Goodyear has a new option tyre here at Cleveland, and they really do believe they're closing the gap on Firestone, who've won 6 of the 9 races so far this year. The 3 that Goodyear won, of course, were all won by Michael Andretti. Gilles de Ferran now bearing down on Andre Ribeiro as we rejoin Paul Page, Danny Sullivan.
No, he really had high hopes of going in this team. It was a championship team that had won Indianapolis 500 last year with Jacques Villeneuve. He was really looking forward for an exciting season, and they've just had problems all year long.
Team Green, by the way, should be seeing a new sponsorship next year, one that they're using in their Indy Lights team. Whoa, Hero came off the corner and almost got it. As the leader is coming around, you get a glimpse there of Bernardi.
I'm sorry, Paul. I don't think that was the...
Whoa, we've got an accident over in the first turn. That's Johansson pulling away, and here's Eddie Lawson with heavy damage to the race car.
Boy, the way that...
Here's how it happened. Watch Eddie Lawson here in the front. Parker Johnstone moving to the inside.
Goes in. Oh, closes the door, and then Parker ran over his right front with his right rear, and that's why you see that right front folded under. It wasn't that bad of an accident until they ran over each other.
So Parker and Eddie Lawson get together, and Parker Johnstone, there you see him, the Motorola car went right through the shortcut. Apparently he wants to get back just as fast as he can, find out what damage he has. Looking at the fronts, actually they're cambered a bit, but it's very difficult to tell if that isn't normal for a road course, but it does look like a spread on the toe. Gary Gerald?
Quick report on Raul Boisel. He comes in and they've shut the engine down. They're working with gear throttle linkage, and apparently the throttle stuck. I can't imagine anything that could be worse for a race driver, especially on a wide open circuit like this.
Yeah, and the lake just a few feet away in some places. Maybe it's hot enough he was thinking, we'll let it stick, hit the lake, have a little refreshing time.
I don't think so.
No, I don't either. Leader into the pits as we go to full course yellow, Jackaroo.
Well, this is a little earlier than this team had hoped to make their first pit stop, but you take advantage of the yellow. Alex Zanardi taking on a full tank of fuel. They wanted it to be about lap 29, so they're about 9 laps too soon. They made a front wing adjustment. They added a little front wing to your leader's car.
Well, they got the stop on lap 20. Hear the applause in the pits. It's always great to watch them when they recognize that it was a good stop, and everybody in the pit breaks out in applause for the guys.
Well, that was a fast stop, and Jack, you were really right there. I think he probably took advantage of that. The track's probably a little slicker than we've seen, and he just wanted to make a fine tune there. He also, to show you how good a shape he's in, he turned down that water bottle. He must be feeling fine.
Well, he took the stop on lap 20. About everybody else stayed out. Jackaroo?
Well, one of the reasons why Zanardi won't need a water bottle most of the time, guys, is he has an onboard water supply. It's with a plastic tubing that comes right from the nose of the car, feeds all the way up through the cockpit, and he can take water anytime he wants right through the helmet.
Well, strange that they'd offer him. I know, but strange they'd offer him a water bottle knowing that they've got that system on board.
So Alex Zanardi comes into the pits as the leader of the race on lap 20, so that resets the way the strategy will be played here now and makes for some interesting probabilities. Jimmy Vasser, teammate, takes the lead behind the PPG pace car, followed by Paul Tracy, Andrew Ribeiro, and Alex Zanardi. Parker Johnstone headed for the pits. By the way, Emerson Fittipaldi also made a stop under that yellow. And Eddie Lawson's car has been picked up now with severe damage to the car. Obviously, Lawson is out of the race, but the good news is there's no indication at all that he was injured in any way. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations.
IndyCar World Series live on Eurosport with Firestone, the science of safety.
So the full course yellow continues as they clear the car of Eddie Lawson away. And interestingly, Alex Zanardi made that stop, reasoning probably that as last year there was only one full course yellow. Obviously this track is very wide, there's plenty of runoff, so it's not often that you have to completely throw out a full course yellow unless the car is stuck in the middle of the track. And he figured, well, maybe if there's only one full course yellow, very low race like that, maybe I'll make my stop and gain some advantage through that. Obviously he's lost the lead initially, but maybe he'll make it back later. It's earlier than he wanted to make the stop. He was 9 laps earlier than he would have liked, but Zanardi already has the most laps led so far this year. He's got a really good hooked up car again today. He looks very strong. Let's go back to America. Paul Page and Danny Sullivan.
Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Quick word on Paul Tracy. Chuck Sprague and the team say they are committed to a two-stop race, so they are gambling. The fuel window is still about 11-12 laps away for Paul Tracy, so he stays out to stay up there with the leader. In the meantime, Parker Johnstone now behind pit wall. Parker, what happened?
Well, Eddie and I were fighting for territory, and he moved left just as I went down the inside, and I got up next to him, and he turned in towards the apex, and it's one of those things that happen in racing. I feel sorry for the Gallus crew and for Eddie, and certainly for all the Bricks Contact guys that worked their tails off this weekend, and just one of those things. We just didn't want it to happen today.
This weekend has been a nightmare for this man, Paul.
Well, they spread out and go to the green once again as you take a look at DeFerrin battling with Zanardi. They come across in the order that they actually approach the green flag. No changes. It looked like Zanardi was going to make a move that would really get him well up. He didn't get that done. The leader of the race, Jimmy Vasser, got a clean start with Paul Tracy following him through the corner. So Tracy wasn't able to jump very far forward on that start. Here's Michael Andretti as he works on DeFerrin.
Well, he's all over him. He's got to make a run here. Look at his hands moving. That car's jumping around. But I'm not so sure that Gilles going to go for it there. Those are tough spots to pass in.
Looking back from DeFerrin, Michael Andretti on the charge. Back through turns 9 and 10. This is the main straight. There's the starter stand over to the left. That wide first turn just ahead. And there it is. That's the battle for fifth as Michael Andretti is right down on top of the DeFerrin car. The report now, Raul Boisel is out of the race officially as a result of an engine problem when you saw him slow down on the circuit. And the heat and this track can just be so tough on the race cars, especially on the half shafts, the gearbox, the constant velocity joints. Everything takes a beating.
Well, we look at some passing going on there. Look at this DeFerrin upside. That's inside of Zanardi.
And DeFerrin comes around Zanardi. Takes Zanardi as Michael Andretti continues to poke behind him. And take a look at Paul Tracy as he climbs all over the back of Jimmy Vasser. So Chip Ganassi's team involved in two big fights right now.
And that car right behind him that just went out of our screen right there was Andre Ribeiro right there. That's 1, 2, 3.
So there's Vasser, there's Tracy, there's Ribeiro, and the battle is back at the front, Jackaroo.
And it's a very good battle. You may wonder why Jimmy Vasser decided to stay out and why this battle is the way it is. Tom Anderson made a call with Jimmy Vasser to try and make this a two-stop race. They will not pit to lap 29. But during that caution, the tires picked up a lot of debris and rubber. Vasser radioed in that the handling wasn't good under green, Anderson talked him through the last couple of laps. Now Vassar says the car feels a little better.
Well, what happens with that, Jack, is that you get that on there and you got to run some hard laps to get it actually to clean up the tire and throw away that rubber that's been built up on there. And that's why I think we see some of these cars, they took a couple laps to settle down, and now they're going back to the front like the Farron again.
And Danny, one of the things that happened is they panicked, the Ganassi team, because they were afraid maybe they had a tire going down. The crew was ready to make a tire change. Quick and very astute thinking on the part of Anderson kept Vassar out there, and they're still shooting for lap 29. But because of the cautions, they may go a little longer.
This is the 5th race that Jimmy Vassar, as we watch him, has led. Every race that he's led so far this year, he's won. Of course, then again, Alex Zanardi started on the pole and took the win last week. As Ribeiro took a both of them slide, and Paul Tracy really loses it.
He got out there. Did you see those big black marks come down from the tires? And look at Ribeiro's going to go up underneath him.
Andre Ribeiro comes inside. Paul Tracy takes over second place. Boy, Tracy got way wide, tried to keep a hold of it, laid down some enormous skid marks when he did that. In fact, Ribeiro was fighting for his life there for a second as well.
And you know what that was? That's wheel spin. That's not just, he's not just sliding. That means he's standing on the gas trying to control that thing and not lose that position. Unfortunately, he did.
So Paul Tracy tries to come back at Ribeiro, but here again, a comparison of powers. That's the Mercedes-Benz power plant in Paul Tracy's car chasing the Honda. And the Honda still, despite the time that we are in the season, well beyond the halfway point now with 10 races complete. It still is the dominant power, it seems, down the straightaways. Paul Tracy, who got a great start here, was able to jump up into 3rd behind the 2 Target Ganassi cars, but now has fallen a bit backwards. As we take a look down at Jill DeFerrin from the Honda Helicam. And Jill is closing on Paul Tracy now.
And of course, that yellow car that we see closing up on Paul Tracy is Gilles DeFerrin. I think he's moving up as well. He probably had a little bit of that tire build up, as a lot of them did, and I don't think Michael. The Andretti's always had that knack that they could go faster right off the bat on cold tires or right after a restart. I don't know what they do with their cars, but I always wanted to know that secret.
Got a glimpse of a car off the course. There it is. That, of course, is P.J. Jones, who had a problem earlier. He's having continuing problems here at the Burke Lakefront Airport today. Now completely stopped and silent off the edge of the course. And there's your race leader, Jimmy Vassar, as he comes through the standing yellow for P.J. Jones's Eagle. And Ribeiro is now closing the gap, while at the same time, DeFerrin is closing on Tracy. And Vassar is closing on DeFerrin. Gary Gerald?
Well, what has been a very frustrating season for Emerson Fittipaldi, Carl Hogan, Team Penske continues. Emerson setting in the car, crew with the body work off, changing the electronic units. We'd heard that might be a potential header problem. Whatever it is, it hasn't been solved. It's cost him a tremendous amount of time thus far. They're trying to fire the engine now to see if there's anything there. It roars into life, but no, Rick Reineman gives it the across the throat slice, shut it down. The day's over for M.O.
So Gilles DeFerrin continues to work on Paul Tracy. That is, of course, Zanardi just behind DeFerrin. I may have identified him for you as Vassar. Vassar is the leader of the race, and the course workers here have decided they're going to try to get P.J. Jones off the course and into a safe position and avoid going to a full course yellow in doing so.
He's in a pretty safe spot there unless somebody came off and spun it or banged the wall and shot across the track. But they do want that out of harm's way.
Michael Andretti works on Zanardi. You saw him dart out for a second there, take a breath of fresh air, and they are all right together. Herta takes an alternate line into the corner, trying to get around Fernandez.
Boy, that's fabulous. Those are all for positions. I mean, everybody's racing there. Nobody can, just like Paul Tracy made a mistake earlier, nobody can make a mistake or they'll drop 2 or 3 spots.
In fact, 10 seconds covers the first 10 cars. So everybody's still right together. And right together now with 30 laps complete. for moving on the course after trying to deal with the car of P.J. Jones. And that's one of the other advantages of this large airport circuit, is you can maneuver with your support equipment well off the course. The IndyCar safety team is out there as the leader of the pits. Leader turned down into the pit road, and here he is, Jimmy Vasser with second place Ribeiro right behind him, Jackaroo.
And this should mean that this will be a two-stop race for Jimmy Vasser, your current point leader. Now watch as they make the service. Watch for a mechanic to go to the front wing. What he will try to do is put about a turn and a half of front wing in the car. He does it there. They're getting ready to, he's got it back in gear. Jimmy wants to get back out on the racetrack. You can hear it. 15.1, and he beats out Ribeiro, but it's going to be a drag race to the blend line.
So here comes Jimmy Vasser as he comes out, and there comes Ribeiro. They stay in relative order, the same positions as they came into the pits. Good stops, though, by both teams, and not just one, but two mechanics making the changes on the front end.
Well, that's right. You see the cars wiggling going out there. They've got cold tires on. They're trying to put the power down. He wants to make sure he keeps Ribeiro behind him, but he wants to make sure that he doesn't lose that spot or spin off because of cold tires.
Gil DeFerrin picks up the lead as Paul Tracy peels off for his stop, Gary Gerald.
Remember what happened to them on the mile oval at Nazareth. He came in too hot, collected a crewman, got into the wall. This time he's right on the mark. It's a perfect stop for Paul Tracy. They're hoping that they can execute a no change on the car stop as quickly as Vasser and Ribeiro maybe gain some time. Here he's rolling. We've got him at 13.9 seconds.
So Paul Tracy, speed limit is 60 miles an hour on pit road. No particular rule on how fast you get to 60 miles an hour, though. As Paul Tracy takes every advantage of the power in his car to do just that, and he comes back into the fight. So Gil DeFerrin has picked up the lead, followed now by Alex Zanardi, who, remember, stopped on the 20th lap and is out of sequence with the entire rest of the field. So the assumption is that Zanardi will be able to stay out there and stay out at least through the 50th lap of the race.
But of course that gamble only comes into play later on when he has to make another stop. Everybody's made their stop. It will take a while for us to see which pays off.
So there's Gil DeFerrin, who is amazingly able to go yet another lap. Now 33 laps for DeFerrin. The window here is rather narrow, isn't it, for a pit stop?
Well, it's pretty narrow, but the thing is we have so many different measurements of the track because it's an airport, so it depends on where you run on the track, and some guys are more efficient with their throttle than other guys, and so they might be able to run that extra lap.
So Gil DeFerrin should be due in shortly. He'll relinquish the lead to Alex Zanardi, who is now being pursued by Michael Andretti and Brian Herta. Out through the East Loop.
And one other thing, we don't know what mixture setting he's running his car on. They can run it at 100%. That means 100% fuel, 98%, 96, 94. If he's running it a little bit leaner, he's conserving more fuel than somebody's running it richer.
All right, so it is Gil DeFerrin, followed by Alex Zanardi, and then Michael Andretti. There are your top three. 34 laps are complete here at the Cleveland IndyCar Grand Prix.
As always.
And of course, as Jacques Villeneuve proved last year, if you've got a really good driver in your car, a really intelligent driver in your car, then you can run lean and still keep the pace up by being consistent, by being smooth, keeping out of trouble. And that would seem to be what Gil DeFerrin is doing at the moment, running slightly leaner perhaps than some of the opposition, than some of the Honda opposition, which is principally Zanardi and Vasser. Of course, Gil DeFerrin also using a Honda engine, and that's why he's been able to stay out maybe a few more laps. What's really going to be interesting in the shakedown of all this, though, is what happens with Zanardi. He pitted on lap 21, I think it was, 20 or 21, and that puts him out of sequence with everybody else, but it also puts him out of the fuel window as well in terms of trying to do a two-stop race. If everybody else does a two-stop race and it stays full green, then Zanardi's in trouble. If they get another full course yellow and it happens out of sequence, then Zanardi's got this race in the bag because he seems to be pretty quick today. Obviously Gil DeFerrin as well. It's very much a similar situation to Portland, where Zanardi was able to get himself out front, but DeFerrin was able to run on his pace, albeit some way behind him. Here DeFerrin trying to do the opposite to Zanardi and try and get some space between the two of them, knowing that they're pretty much running on the same pace when the going is good. Michael Andretti also in the hunt there as well. And of course, Michael Andretti is third in points on 73 in the championship. A good result from him today. Well, he wouldn't walk away with the championship lead, but he could certainly close the gap some on Jimmy Vasser. There's Bobby Rahal making a stop. Looks like a fairly extended one. They've got the engine cover off the back. The Mercedes engine in the back of that Reynard chassis of Bobby Rahal's. Rahal not having one of his greatest seasons, down in 10th place at the moment in points. It's a good circuit for Ganassi. They've run well here over the years. Vasser had a good result here last year. He came third. Brian Herter at the time was running for Ganassi. He was second. But Chip Ganassi himself, the team owner, had his best result ever as an IndyCar driver back in the 1980s and in 1984 when he came second at Cleveland. So it's a circuit which is he's very fond of, and both he and his team have always run well here. Gilles de Ferran looking strong though, and still not had his first win of the 1996 season. I mentioned he had pole here and dominated last year, but P2 last week in Portland. Who knows, he might pick up a win here. Let's get back.
Gilles de Ferran actually stopped back at the 19th lap. My mistake. I apologize. So
I went with you too, Paul. I'm sorry.
He's in the lead. There's Alex Zanardi sits in second, followed by Michael Andretti, Brian Herta. They are in race order. But look here. Here's Al Unser Jr., who is making up for what has not been a pleasant weekend as he's run up into 5th place. Fernandez is just behind him, so those top 6 are all right together.
And I think what we're seeing here was their strategy to stop as opposed to the other one to make it a 2-stop race. And as I said, it will only play out further into the race.
The car leading the next group is Christian Fittipaldi, who runs in 7th. You're now on board Christian, and you can just get an occasional glimpse of the Adrian Fernandez car, which lies ahead as Christian tries to make up time. Let's go to the pits and Jack Arute.
And Paul, even though we weren't a math major, let's see if we can decipher this all for you. Remember when the full course yellow came out around lap 19? Your leader at that time was Alex Zanardi. Zanardi ducked down to pit road. Who followed suit? Gilles de Ferran from Brazil in the Pennzoil car. The other 2 drivers that play into this, that being, of course, Jimmy Vasser. Well, Vasser stayed out. That put him out of sequence. But now he has also completed his pit stop. And Gary Gerald, another driver that stayed out, completed his sequential pit stop, and he's out there now. Some people want to make it a 2-stop race. Other guys like Vasser might have to make it a 3-stop race, Gary.
One of those hoping to make it a 2-stop race is Paul Tracy. We saw him come in and get his service in under 14 seconds. He wasn't able to gain ground on the other teams that were up there in the lead position, but they are hoping that it will be a 2-stop race. His teammate, Al Unser Jr., who I believe is currently being listed in the number 5 position, was one of those who came in on that yellow. And I just talked with the crew. Richard Buck says, this car has not been working well for us this weekend, but I'm telling you right now, Junior is driving the wheels off of it. He's throwing everything he's got at this racetrack right now, and he's in the top 5 because of it.
And Junior is one of those guys who can make up for a race car that isn't working as well. Not like the old days where you could have just a terrible car and the driver was 85, 90% of the car. Now the car is at least 80% of the run, but little Al is still one of those guys who can reach down and pull up even greater performance out of a race car.
I don't know if it's 80%, but I'm a driver, so I'd like to take a little credit, but I think just to clarify, when somebody's saying drive the wheels off of it like they were talking about, he's going in deep on the brakes. He's getting it as much as he can. He's overdriving the car. He's taking it through the corner faster than the car really is set up for. He's sliding it around. He's trying to be as gentle as he can, but he's really just hustling the car. And Junior does it great. And I'll tell you one other thing. He is awful good around this Cleveland Burkefront airport.
And what he really is doing is changing it from a mechanical form to an art form, making it better than it is.
Well, that's right.
Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Bobby Rahal continues a season plagued with problems. Rahal came onto pit road, complained that the motor wasn't firing properly. They changed the boost control unit, sent him back out. It still didn't sound very good. Look for Bobby Rahal to come back onto pit road within a lap or two, gentlemen.
Bobby Rahal, who scored his first win in Indy cars at this very circuit and has not had the best of seasons thus far, especially when you expected so much to develop out of this team, especially now teamed with Brian Herta. They'd really be able to get some good test time and do well. 40 laps complete. DeFerrin, Zanardi, Andretti, the top three here in Cleveland.
So after 40 laps, I'm delighted to say Mark Blundell making some great progress as well. Up from 21st early in the race to 13th place now. And we haven't seen him at all in our pictures, but it'd be nice to see just how far back he is from that gaggle. I know that, well, Moore is in 9th place, so he's only 4 spots behind him. And Moore certainly very much in touch with the cars in front of him. So looking at the battle here between Zanardi and Andretti, this is the battle for second place on the racetrack. A little bit of confusion there amongst the American commentators, which certainly threw me about DeFerrin's pit strategy. We didn't see him come in, but he must have made an earlier stop even than Alex Zanardi, so it'll be very interesting to see how that all shakes down. That's Christian Fittipaldi along with Scott Pruitt and Greg Moore, 7th, 8th and 9th on the racetrack. Christian's been very consistent this season in 4th place in the championship, very much in touch on 72 points, just 27 points, behind championship leader Jimmy Vasser. But look at Moore hustling at the back of Scott Pruitt. Moore wants to make up for that poor start he had, and he's certainly gone a little bit quiet in the last few races. A dynamic start to the season with plenty of strong points finishes, but recently his season has calmed down a little. He had, of course, a 3rd place in Australia and a 2nd place in Nazareth. But the last few races, well, he's been really nowhere. 5th in Milwaukee 3 races ago. And he wants to reignite his challenge for Rookie of the Year. Of course, Alex Zanardi getting very close to him. Down the inside into turn 1 goes Greg Moore. Nice move. And now we'll see what he can do about Christian Fittipaldi. Moore up to 8th, but Pruitt's coming back to him. And this is what I was talking about earlier with this Cleveland Burke Lakefront Airport, to give it its proper title and to pronounce it properly. That's side-by-side racing, sometimes 2-3 abreast. You remember that classic battle back in '93 between Nigel Mansell and Emerson Fittipaldi. That race, of course, won by Paul Tracy, but that battle was between those two guys for 2nd place.
Lakefront Airport, you ride on board with Michael Andretti. Just seconds ago, watch Greg Moore working on Scott Pruitt.
Yeah, that's him in the blue car, pulls out just on the inside, slows down, makes sure. Now Scott Pruitt tries to get a run, seems slide out there, tries to go back up the inside, but he didn't make it.
And now as they come into the first turn, boy, Moore really locks him up, trying to get around Christian Fittipaldi, gives him enough room, comes around, Scott Pruitt comes inside of Christian at the same time. So 2 cars get past Christian. I think Christian saw Greg Moore coming and was worried about being clipped off. He did not, I don't think, saw Scott Pruitt coming. Jack Arute?
Well, Paul, Christian Fittipaldi is running a conservative race. Not conservative style-wise, but trying to conserve fuel. They want to make it in 2 stops. They've been talking back and forth about where to run the fuel metering and how to drive this racetrack. Meanwhile, we told you early on that there was a severe understeer problem for Scott Pruitt. They made a wing adjustment during their pit stop. Now Pruitt says the car is much better. That was the battle we were watching out on the racetrack.
And the report from Bobby Rahal's team is that the changes they did make, Rahal radioed in and said it's better, and he has decided to stay out. 42 laps complete. There's Rahal. Greg Moore is approaching him, but of course he is, Rahal with the stop is not on the lead pace any longer. And Greg Moore now seems to be able to pull away just a bit from Scott Pruitt. So Greg Moore now 7th. His next target is Adrian Fernandez. You saw P.J. Jones have his problems earlier. Gary Gerold's now with him.
And P.J., in your rookie IndyCar season and starting in the middle of this season, a steep learning curve we're aware of. How was it for you today in the short time you were able to contest this wide open spaces?
Well, the first couple laps were great. We passed about three cars, and it felt good. But then we started losing the shift sensors, kept making the motor miss. So I came in, got a couple laps down, we fixed that, went back out. But I think we hurt the gearbox already, and then it just locked up. But Toyota, we've been going good. The motors have run all the last three races, all three of them, and I think that's a positive step. We just have more work to do on our chassis and on our motors. But I just want to thank Castrol for sticking with us and Toyota for behind us, because they're going to get there one day. They're going to be on top.
Thanks, PJ.
Okay.
Well, we've just crossed over the halfway point of the race. 19 cars remain on the lead lap. Greg Moore, that blue and white car, runs in 7th place, looking for Adrian Fernandez up ahead. Leader of the race is still Jill DeFerrin, with Alex Zanardi behind him, and then Michael Andretti. None of those at the moment in close contest. To the front of the field on board, the bright yellow car of Jill DeFerrin. And took out one of the cones. That's Jimmy Vasser, of course.
Now, either that means that, sorry, Paul, that either means that he ran off track, or one of them just got flipped out of the car, so he's down to one, but he needs to, or somebody hit him, knocked him onto the track, and he ran over him in the process.
Well, now, if that stays there, they're certainly going to call him in, but he needs to come in anyway. That's going to block the right side coolers, isn't it?
Well, it could do, but it shouldn't. It might mess up the handling more than that. But what it really does is it turns it back into a 3-stop race.
So watching him, see what they're going to do with him, whether or not they're going to black flag him. And there is the leader of the race coming up just behind him. Leader comes around, 2nd place. His teammate comes around, Alex Zanardi.
Boy, and he's going to have, this is really bad for Jimmy, because this means he's going to drop him out of the points chase a little bit. He's going to have to make a stop to clean that up, and I think he must have gone off someplace. See the puff of smoke off that right front tire? He's locking him up. He's got a problem. He's got 2 cones in there.
Well, here's another question for you. That cone, it looks to me, when you look at the onboard camera as Michael Andretti comes by, 3rd place, when you look at the onboard camera shot, it looks to me like it is lying right against the arm that controls the steering, that links his steering wheel out to the wheel itself. Jack Harut?
Well, Paul, the discussion was between Tom Anderson and Jimmy Vasser. Who made the call to come into the pits? Jimmy Vasser himself. They're going to come in and they'll take advantage of this pit stop to remove the cones. Now, this happened to this team back in Australia, if you recall. They hit a cone, had it wedged. Vasser comes down under the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit, and he will get the service from the Tom Anderson-led target team of Chip Ganassi. He finds his spot. He'll be looking for the mark, and we'll see if they'll be able to pull the cone out. It is wedged right up there behind the right front wing. First thing to do, pull the tires off, make the change there. Now watch for the outside tire man. He'll make the change on the cone itself. They extract the cone. They make the wing adjustment. 12.3. Now why they wanted to make the wing adjustment was that Vasser had been complaining about the handling of the car. There were 2 cones pulled out of the car. Vasser is back out, but this changes the sequence for Vasser.
Boy, it sure does as he comes out on the 48th lap of the race.
So
Jimmy Vasser is in 18th position, not anywhere near a point-scoring position.
Yes, Paul, and what that really does is it really throws him out, because he lost that ground by staying up to make it a 2-stop. Now it's for sure going to be a 3-stop.
Michael Andretti in at the 48th lap. So Michael Andretti turns onto the pit road. Remember, many of these teams have staggered their stops. Jill DeFerrin, one of those that is also on a staggered pattern, as is Alex Zanardi. So you expect that those may all be coming in here shortly.
Well, they've got to, because they all run around 30 laps. They stopped at 18 before, and 30 laps is 48. He stopped on the 48th lap. They're all going to be coming in right now, the ones that stopped early on, which is Al Jr., DeFerrin, Zanardi, and who else I think was out there?
And Michael, of course.
And Michael.
So DeFerrin is the leader at the moment. 49 laps complete as he works alongside of his teammate, Christian Fittipaldi. The race started here with Zanardi jumping around the pole sitter, Jimmy Vasser taking the lead for 19 laps and then pitting. And then Jimmy Vasser took over the lead for 10 laps. And Paul Tracy took the lead for a single lap and handed the lead over on a stop to Jill DeFerrin. 19 cars on the lead lap as they cross the halfway point 5 laps ago. We're now on the 50th lap of 90. Out of the race, Eddie Lawson is out, Bosell is out, Parker Johnstone, PJ Jones, and Emerson Fittipaldi have all retired from competition.
You see them go through there. You see how rough that is. Their heads bouncing around, and that eventually takes its toll. These drivers get tired.
And Scott Pruitt is in, Jack.
And this is a normal pit stop for Scott Pruitt and the Patrick Racing team. They're going to change. Taking a look from overhead, a new camera angle for the Pruitt team. They're going to change 4 tires. They make a wing adjustment about a half turn downward, and Scott Pruitt is off and away and back into the hunt.
There was the other name we couldn't remember. Scott Pruitt comes out.
Gives a little lock of that right front brake. See, he's slowed down there because there's cars coming through there. He just couldn't shoot out, which is frustrating for him because now he's got to go slow.
Al Unser Jr. comes in the pits, Gary.
We're wondering if they'll go for a short fuel fill here because this is a 3-stop race for Al Unser Jr. That indeed is the case. 10.5 seconds and he's gone.
Well, he gets new tires on it, though, which should substantially improve the handling.
Now, that adds to the gamble because what they're doing is they didn't put as much fuel in. They just went with the tires and as much fuel as they could get into that stop, hoping to pick up 2-3 seconds because they know they have to stop one more time.
Paul Tracy is in peril of being lapped here as you look at Jill DeFerrin and Alex Zanardi. And Zanardi pulls off and heads in for the pits. Jill DeFerrin stays out. So Alex Zanardi in second place heads down. His teammate, you saw him in earlier. Zanardi answering the requirement of 60 miles an hour on the pit road, Jackaroo.
And at 60 miles an hour, being positioned exactly at pit out, it makes for a long drive by Alex Zanardi. He comes in, hits the marks exactly. Now we will see if there are any chassis changes wing-wise on Zanardi's car. It doesn't look as if there will be. They asked if he wanted more wing. He said no. 13.1. Zanardi's away.
And the good news is that he only had to maintain the speed limit for about 100 feet there and then can come right back up to speed. Except, of course, as Danny Sullivan mentioned, the problem with joining into traffic at the first turn because you're joining on the high-speed line. So DeFerrin, we watch for him, see what the tactics will come out of Jim Hall's team. He's still the leader of the race.
And he's still going another lap. He must be getting fabulous mileage.
So with Zanardi making the stop and DeFerrin getting around Tracy, you saw Roberto Moreno and Hiro Matsushita there, both in the picture on the main stretch. The whole play of the race now lies in the hands of Jim Hall and his most capable team for Jill DeFerrin. And since we're watching Jill, and as we wait to see if he's going to come in, some of the other rumors, we talked about the rumor that he was going to Formula One, but he has denied it thus far and denied it in a way that makes you truly believe it. Some of the other questions are like what happens to Robbie Gordon? Indication that he has a potential over in NASCAR, a potential different IndyCar ride, though I would have thought his contract at Walker would preclude both of those. You heard anything, Danny?
Well, I have, and of course he's talking about moving over to Barry Green, where I think they're going to have their Indy Light sponsor move up and come on to an Indy car. And also hear that Pennzoil is going to move from Jim Hall possibly to another team, and that Jill DeFerrin might switch. Could it even be to maybe where Robbie Gordon is moving from?
Well, we label all of those as rumor. And while we're at it, a guy here looking for a ride, Buddy Lazier, hanging around. He and his dad both have been at most of the races, and there is some question whether or not he might be looking for a ride as well.
And of course, let's not forget also Davy Jones has been seen around and is looking for a ride.
Well, in fact, we expect Davy Jones to come up in a car very shortly here.
I gotta believe that DeFerrin is going to come in on this. He can't go, if he goes any further, I'd have to go down and check and see how big that fuel tank is that he's got in that car.
Well, let's see what he does here. He's heading straight for the pit road. So leader Jill DeFerrin is in. He led 67 of 90 laps here last year. He's led 23 today. Jackaroo?
Paul, this will make it very dicey as far as the amount of whether he'll have to come in again. By our calculations, it would be late in the race for a splash and go. Jill DeFerrin, 60 miles an hour. He comes to a stop, and the crew quite simply goes to work. See no chassis changes. Jim Hall anticipates no changes.
And we watch Zanardi as he closes down. There is DeFerrin, still sits on the pit road. And see where he comes out relative to Zanardi. There's the 9th and 10th turn. Now Zanardi has full speed on the straightaway. DeFerrin can pick it up to full speed, and we'll see where they join one another. Well, DeFerrin took the advantage in that one because there is Zanardi coming through. So DeFerrin has made his stop. And the reason would tell you that you're going to end up with one more stop, certainly out of DeFerrin.
And look at this. This is Michael Andretti, and he knows what this is for. He's going down there for the lead. And don't forget, he's been out there, so his tires are very warmed up. His fuel load's a little lighter. And Gilles DeFerrin is trying to get the heat in his tires right now to really make a run back in there. He's got to be careful. He doesn't want to overdo it. And look who's right behind him. That's Zanardi, who's been out for 2 laps too. So his tires are up to temperature.
So all together right there. And the leader on the track for 1 lap as Zanardi makes the move inside DeFerrin was Greg Moore, but he's made his stop. He's in now, Gary.
Yeah, when he came in, Paul, they went for the short fuel stop, but he hit one of the tires, banged it up against the wall. There was a momentary problem at the left front. It was very close to injuring a crewman. Fortunately, nobody is hurt. At least that's what Phil LePan is checking on right now. Yeah, everybody's okay on the left front, but a very close call as Moore just missed the mark by a precious few inches, and it was a precarious moment for the changer on the left front.
And a fire a little further down the pit area.
Wait a minute, that looks like Mark Blundell bending over the wall right there. That's his helmet right there, and they've got some safety people there and his crew around him. I don't know what's happened, whether they're trying to get his helmet unbuckled, it looks like. There's a lot of liquid on the track right there. I wonder if they had a little fire. See all that water around? That usually means that they had some kind of a fire and they dumped water.
Yeah, but I wonder, the race car, obviously, they got it out of the area. And we will continue to check on Mark Blundell as the leader of the race is Michael Andretti. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations.
The IndyCar World Series, live with
Husqvarna Forest and Garden Products.
You're back live at Cleveland. That's Mark Blundell. He's perfectly all right. The guy who was receiving some attention in the pit lane was one of his pit guys. A bit surprising of Paul and Danny not to spot that the guy receiving attention was considerably fatter than Mark Blundell, who is a lean, mean fighting machine and running quite strongly. Obviously had some problem with some fuel spillage. Perhaps it caught a light. Perhaps Mark might have just clipped the guy on his way out, although it did look as though there was some water on the pit apron. So possibly some problem there. If you remember, Mark Blundell had a problem with his fuel stop-off valve at the US 500, and that was what stopped him from coming second, which is where he was running and should rightfully have finished. But a fuel valve problem meant that he couldn't get enough fuel on board in a late race stop, and he had to come in again later. Anyway, you're on board with your race leader, Michael Andretti, and as we wait to see the fallout from those final rounds of, well, we think in most cases final rounds of pit stops, we wait to see exactly what the order is, but certainly DeFerrin is well up there, Zanardi is well up there. DeFerrin, of course, made that late stop and was still trying to get some heat into his tyres when Michael Andretti was able to blast past him. Let's go and catch up now with Paul and Danny.
Back at Cleveland, The Burke Lakefront Airport on board with Robbie Gordon. In just 2 weeks, we'll go across the border to Canada. 5-time winner Michael Andretti will go for a 6th win at the Molson Indy Toronto. Coverage begins Saturday with qualifying on ESPN2, and then the race itself on Sunday, July 14th, right here on ABC Sports. With a great deal of confusion, the lead now falls to Michael Andretti. And there is Mark Blundell with his distinctive helmet, but it sure looked like the other one.
Well, that's the crewman that got hurt. But what we've discovered is, of course, that they wear the helmets painted like their driver, and they all had it on, so we mistaken that was Mark Blundell.
Gary Gerald, can you add to this?
One of the crewmen, the fueler, Tim Love, is being attended to by safety officials. Bruce McCaw with this team. Bruce, can you tell us what happened? Was there, in fact, fire?
There was a small fire that got a little bit of a fuel spill. The fire was fairly minor.
And your fueler, apparently just trying to get out of the area, may have injured a lower extremity.
I think so, yeah.
Not believed to be serious?
Doesn't appear to be serious. He seems to be fine. He's got a sore leg, and we're just not sure. We'll just rather be safe. And
rather unnerving nonetheless.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the word from Bruce McCaw, the Pac West pit, and they work with the fueler down here, Paul, at this time.
All right, so good news there out of the Pac West team, and good news for Mark Blundell, who, of course, continues in the fight. The fire obviously didn't do anything to cause the car to be pulled from competition. Michael Andretti is the leader, Alex Zanardi, Jill DeFerrin third, then Alonso Jr., Adrian Fernandez, Brian Herta, Andre Ribeiro, and he's in the pits, Jack.
And this should be Andre's last stop. They've taken on all the tires they need. Now they're going to take a full load of fuel. As soon as they've got it through the vent hose, they do. He's off and away. A little bit longer than normal for the stop, simply to take on as much fuel as possible. They don't intend to come back in.
And the course marshals reporting this as debris on the course. Piece of carbon fiber with some Zoof's fittings on it.
Well, that looks like maybe off the front wing on the edge. They might have banged it over something or hit something. That's just an aerodynamic device, but it's still something you do not want to run over. But that's pretty much out of harm's way, but I'm sure they want to get it out of there.
Andre Ribeiro pitted on lap 30, again on the 61st lap. We're now on the 62nd with Michael Andretti leading. Let's go back to Gary Gerald.
Well, we just want to clarify the fueler's last name is Douthit. Bruce McCaw was confused, as you can well imagine, in this scramble down here to see if all of his people were all right. But Tim Douthit is the man who's getting the attention to his lower right leg. He's talking with the folks down here, seems to be in great spirits. I don't think it's a significant or a major problem, but we wanted to make the clarification on the name, Paul.
Yeah, better news yet that he's palling around with his buddies down there. These guys work so hard. You can go back in the paddock late at night, and they're still constantly at it. We watched the leader of the race down from one of America's most enduring corporate images, the Goodyear blimp. It's overhead, giving us the aerial views today, and it's been focusing on the front of the race, Michael Andretti being chased by Zanardi. There's Michael.
Well, Paul, the radio chatter between Lee White and Michael Andretti has not been real favorable about the performance of the engine. Michael has been complaining since, about 10 laps into the race. He does not feel the engine is running the way it should. And all Lee White can keep saying is 10-4, simply because Michael's in the lead.
Yeah, not a whole lot you're going to do about it there. I certainly don't want to bring him in. Fourth race that Michael has led this year. He won the other three, so maybe this is a good omen for Michael Andretti. 64 laps complete.
So Michael Andretti making complaints, but he looks pretty healthy at the moment, and looking for his fourth victory of the 1996 season to back up those he had on his home track at Nazareth, of course, also at Detroit and Milwaukee. Those two were back-to-back victories. And Michael Andretti currently lying third in the championship on 73 points. A win today would see him leaving with 93. Doesn't look as though Vasser's going to score very many today, and he was on 99 going into today's race. Little out, well, he's currently running in 4th place, and if he stays there, then he'll be on 99 points as well. So it's going to be very tight at the top if things stay as they are at the moment. There is Little out running down Gilles de Ferran. De Ferran in 3rd place, another strong performance from him, and all kinds of very much the most talked about man in IndyCar racing at the moment. Rumours he might go to Team Green, also rumours of interest from Carl Haas and a number of others as well, but a lot of it's talk. He denies that he's interested in coming, well, he denies there's any contact or an offer been made from Stewart Racing, although he does admit that they have had some preliminary talks. But I spoke to Tom Walkinshaw at Magny Cours on Saturday and said, well, you were interested in him, would you have him for next year? In fact, Tom said he'd signed him for this year, but de Ferran couldn't get out of the Hall contract. Now with the Pennzoil money moving, I believe, over to the IRL series, the breakaway series there, then maybe de Ferran's going to have to make a move. And Tom Walkinshaw said to me, well, I'm sure if he can get out of that contract, he'll be on the phone. So Walkinshaw's still very interested in Gilles de Ferran, and his TWR Arrows team, of course, is on the build at the moment, trying to move up the Formula 1 grid, and someone like Gilles de Ferran, certainly a very attractive prospect. We'll wait and see. Interested to see the decline of Paul Tracy. Was running in 3rd place for a while, currently down in 18th spot. No explanation been given as to why that's happened. So that's a bit odd. We'll have to try and find out what's been going on there. Watching Adrian Fernandez, currently running in 5th place. Fernandez had a bit of an up and down season, currently running 15th in the points altogether.
Back at the Burke Lakefront Airport at Cleveland, Alex Zanardi as he tries to chase down Michael Andretti. Here is the battle that has developed now for 3rd between Gilles de Ferran and Al Unser Jr. Robbie Gordon just pulled to a stop off the edge of the race course, right up next to one of the barriers off of the pit straight. So apparently Robbie's day is done. You see him pushing the car off back there now. Also, Bobby Rahal was back into the pits again, so his problems continue on this very warm day here on the edge of Lake Erie. There's the rundown now with 67 laps complete. Michael Andretti, we're keeping an eye on him as the leader of the race. Jack Arute indicated that he may not have gotten a full load of fuel on the last pit stop. What difference will that make at this point in the run?
Well, it won't really make a difference in this point in the run because he's going to have to stop again. We're already past the 60 point. So I think what it was that Michael didn't realize he's going to have to make a 3-stop race. I think he thought it was a 2-stop. That's why he was frustrated.
Well, Michael Andretti, you see him on pit road, heads toward Jack Arute and the crew now.
And Danny Sullivan is absolutely correct. That was what Michael Andretti was so upset about. He thought he was out there for the rest of the day. Finally, Lee White radioed in that he was going to have to come in. And Michael was a little upset. Not like last week at Portland, but he was upset. But it shouldn't make a big difference. 12.2 seconds for Michael Andretti. A quick one.
So Andretti back into the fight. Alex Zanardi, of course, picked up the lead. And this is the battle now as it heats up even more between Al Unser Jr. and de Ferran. And depending on how Michael came back onto course, this is most likely a battle for 3rd.
And let me tell you, this is a critical battle because for Al Jr., these points are critical, particularly at the moment with Jimmy Vasser running down in about 16th spot. So he can really close up on that championship, so can Michael.
Andrew Ribeiro just ahead of the battle is in 11th place, but that doesn't keep him from being a factor in this fight.
I didn't really see what happened to Andre Ribeiro because he's been running up there at the front, and now he's down in 13th spot. I don't know if he just got out of sync or what happened to him because his car seemed to be going well early on.
Just off the edge of Lake Erie here from the Honda Helicam as it tracks the cars down the backside, heads into the East Loop.
too, about Al Unser Jr. He will race you all day long, and he gets behind you. He's not going to let go of you if there's any way he can hold on to you. He's going to try to find a way to get by.
That'd be the worst possible guy that you want in your rearview mirrors.
He is tough.
When you have somebody like him behind you, do you avoid looking to see where he is?
You don't want to look too often because you really got to focus on what's going on in front of you. But there's certain places where you'll pick a spot around the circuit where you spot just to see how close he is, and especially going into braking areas, you don't want the guy coming up underneath you and you're not paying attention. But you really are trying to focus ahead. Like right now, Gilles de Ferran is trying to think, I've got to find a way around Ribeiro as fast as I can to put a little distance between myself and Al Jr.
And that's where the whole concentration issue comes in, and the concept of driving your own race. Though we don't expect a lot of conversation, we have Gilles de Ferran's radio frequency dialed up, and we'll listen in. And Al Unser Jr. heads off to the pits. I wondered what he was going to do there. So Al Unser Jr. pits, and Gary Gerould waits for him.
Man who's won here at Burke Lakefront Airport 2 times in his grand career comes sliding into a stop. Now, he won't need a full load of fuel here. He will obviously get fresh rubber. It's a scrub set of tires that goes on. Down off the jacks, engages. Oh, just a fraction under 10 seconds. Terrific stop.
See, now that's smart pit work. That's obviously Roger Penske. He calculated how much fuel he was going to need for those 2 stops and to get to the end.
So Alex Zanardi leads, followed by de Ferran, and now Fernandez, then Brian Herta. Jackaroo?
And the calculators are just buzzing down here at Chip Ganassi's crew. They think, and it's accentuate to think they have enough fuel on board to go the distance. But most people, by calculating, feel that it might have to be a splash and go with just a handful of laps left. They are going to keep Zanardi out, watch the telemetry, and make a decision in the final moments.
Well, here comes Zanardi through frame, and take a look. That's the interval back to Gilles de Ferran. So it's almost the full length of the main stretch here, Danny.
That's right, but here's the gamble. If you think you can make it, and you got to be pretty sure now, you can start conserving some fuel. If you're going to have to stop for that splash and go, then you've got to run it as hard as you can, because when you get in there, you want to have as big a cushion as possible. So you got to drive 2 different races. You got to be pretty sure now. You can't wait till the end and say, oh, now we need a stop and go for a little splash of fuel.
Especially on a circuit that's as big as this one. 2.369 miles, 10 turns, an airport every other day of the year except for this one weekend. And there's Adrian Fernandez, runs in 3rd place. Jackaroo?
Alex Zanardi will have to stop one more time. After looking at the telemetry, Chip Ganassi just made the decision, said we'll run the string as long as we can, try and build a cushion, and then duck in under a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit, take on about 2 seconds worth of fuel, and get back out there.
And if our hand calculations are correct, you would guess that would happen with about 5 or 6 laps to go in the race.
Well, of course, they'll try to pick a window, and they might even hope for a full course yellow so they don't lose any ground. So they're going to leave it as long as they possibly can and see what unfolds.
So the order is Zanardi, de Ferran, Fernandez, Brian Herta, Michael Andretti is now 5th after leading, then Moore, Unser Jr., Christian Fittipaldi, Andre Ribeiro, and Scott Pruitt.
17 laps remain.
Back to the IndyCar Series, live with Valvoline Motor Oil.
Back live in Cleveland for the closing stages of this fascinating strategic race, and certainly my money's on Gilles de Ferran at the moment. It looks as though Alex Zanardi, as we mentioned earlier, possibly might be caught out with that being out of sequence. And it does look as though perhaps Chip Ganassi is making the decision that he's going to have to call his man in for a splash and go. A couple of seconds only with the fuel, but think of all the time it takes him to come down the pit lane at 60 miles an hour. And unless he can build a very substantial cushion over Gilles de Ferran, you're looking at least 12 to 14 seconds, given that the length of that pit lane and the amount of time he's going to spend stationary to be in any way comfortable. So Gilles de Ferran in a strong position at the moment. We don't believe he has to stop again. And once again, Gilles de Ferran's form, a little lock up there at the front right. He's obviously pushing hard. He doesn't want to let Zanardi get away from him. He wants to put himself in as strong a position as he possibly can. But once again, Gilles de Ferran on very good form at Cleveland. Wouldn't say he dominated it exactly. I think that Zanardi and he have been pretty much level pegging, and it really would be a brave man who would try and separate them on the day. But also in the hunt, Alonso Jr. now down in 8th place after that stop, but he's working his way back up again. To go away from here today with the points lead in the championship, he needs to finish 3rd or higher. So that might be a bit of a stretch for Al Jr., although he did make a very fine last stop, 10 seconds, very, very good. And we have still got about 17 laps to go. Anything could happen. But certainly Gilles de Ferran, who you're riding with at the moment, looking pretty strong. A Honda 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Zanardi, de Ferran and Fernandez. And if they hold on, it'll be their 7th win in 10 races. And Honda certainly have found the formula this year. Everyone was laughing at them in 1994 when Bobby Rahal introduced them to IndyCar racing, but many seasoned observers said, well, just wait and see. We've seen what they've done. Little communication there from de Ferran. Greg Moore in 6th place, Michael Andretti down to 5th. Fascinating battle of pit strategy. Jimmy Vasser in the pits, well, his day has really turned sour. He was leading at the start, but he hit those cones once again, as he did in Surface Paradise. There he went on to win the race. Here, he certainly is not going to. It all seems to have gone a bit pear-shaped for Jimmy Vasser in the last couple of races, and his large points advantage coming away from Milwaukee has evaporated in the last 2 or 3 races. Gilles de Ferran looking for his first win of the 96 season. Only still has 1 win to his credit at Laguna Seca last year. And I think that's Ribeiro in front, getting a little bit leery.
Greg Moore becomes a player. We know that there are others in the top 5, however, who may have to get a splash, including Brian Herta. I think maybe Jack can bring us up to date on some of that.
Gary, add Adrian Fernandez as to one of the drivers that will have to make an additional stop. Add Gilles de Ferran will have to stop. And most importantly, Alex Zanardi will also have to stop. That leaves one big name out there that won't have to stop. His name is Andretti, first name Michael.
This is going to make for some great final laps. We have 11 to go to the finish right now. They've just crossed over on the 79th lap. And Gilles de Ferran currently runs in 2nd. Alex Zanardi's the leader of the race. Look at Jeff Krosnoff there. I'll tell you what, he is really staying in the fight today. Krosnoff currently runs 16th.
Well, you know, yesterday they were having a problem with the car. They had to run it with full of fuel. They could only go down 5 laps because they had a pickup problem that they discovered on the fuel pump. He said his car this morning was great, and he was running around 15th quick all morning in the warm-up.
Well, yesterday, too, the corner workers were reporting that he was very fast through the corners. So Krosnoff, brand new colors on the car, displayed them for the first time last week, and definitely another participant in the Indy cars to watch.
Zanardi coming in for that splash.
Leader of the race, Checkaroo.
Now they put tires out just to try to throw a dummy. They cleaned Zanardi's windshield on his helmet. Fuel only 6.1 seconds. He's away. The first of the guys that have to pit for fuel is in and out.
But there goes de Ferran to pick up the lead of the race. But the indication from the pits was that de Ferran too will have to start. Here comes Zanardi as he chases. He got at least a good, clean entry onto the racetrack. Didn't have to wait for traffic.
Well, I tell you, de Ferran, you know, you've got Jim Hall down there calling this thing. He's pretty clever guy. You know, he stopped late, 55 laps. So can he go 35 laps, Paul?
That's why we're watching Michael Andretti. He's slowed down.
Oh, he's offline. He's offline there, which means he's got a big problem. He moved over in case the car came through there.
So he was running fourth. They thought he could make it. Al Unser Jr. and Greg Moore have already gone past. And he's just trying to coast it to the pits.
But you know what? He must not have that as serious a problem as maybe we think, because if he had something that was terminal, I'm surprised he didn't take that shortcut and cut right back into the pit if his day was run.
And what about Jill DeFerrin, Jack?
Well, let's change it and make it more exciting, guys. Jim Hall has made a call. We're going the distance, no more stops. If anything happens, we'll just run out of fuel out on the racetrack. They're going for the victory they thought they were denied 1 year ago.
Oh, is that cool? So it's a setup for the end of the race that is tactically terrific. We'll be back after these messages and a word from our ABC stations.
Well, that might sound a little gung-ho on the part of Gilles de Ferran and Jim Hall, but my suspicion is that, well, Jim Hall being such a seasoned campaigner and also with such a strong position in the championship, de Ferran is running fifth at the moment, 71 points going into this race. And a win today would put him up on 91 as Michael Andretti gets out of his car. Can't imagine Jim Hall saying, oh, well, hang it all. If we run out of gas, we run out of gas. OK, Zanardi's right there. But there's a championship to be won here, and that's the most important thing to Gilles de Ferran. Just the one-off victories don't matter all that much as Ribeiro comes coasting into the pits. Dropped outside the top six. Herta making a very late stop. He was in fourth place. So all kinds of chopping and changing going on in these late stages of this race, and Zanardi looking pretty strong, it must be said. But my suspicion is that Jim Hall knows that he's just trying to spice up the show a little bit, and in fact he knows that de Ferran's going to be safe. He wouldn't make him go the distance and risk running out of fuel and scoring no points at all. So it's head-to-head. Alex Zanardi and Gilles de Ferran, two ex-Formula 3000 drivers. Interestingly, last weekend's race at Portland saw those two, plus Christian Fittipaldi, who of course won the Formula 3000 championship in '91 when Zanardi finished second, although Zanardi scored more victories, I believe, that year. So a good proving ground for IndyCar racing, if nothing else, Formula 3000. Great to see these young guys making their way over in the States. We understand that Andretti's problem was drivetrain. So that's rotten luck for Michael, because he was certainly well and truly in the hunt as well. He'll almost certainly drop from third place in the points coming away from this race. But we've got some predominantly road courses coming up. There's only one more oval, in fact, that's at Michigan at the end of July. But from now until the end of the season, we've got street and road courses. And a couple of street courses in Canada, of course, and the rest of them all majestic racetracks like Laguna Seca, Mid-Ohio, Road America. So some terrific races coming up, of course, live and exclusive here on Eurosport. Now Gilles de Ferran, he remembers so bitterly what happened here 1 year ago. He was going for his first ever IndyCar win. And it was around about this stage in the race, perhaps slightly later, but he was going to make a pass on Scott Pruitt to lap him. And Pruitt didn't see him and took him off the racetrack, and de Ferran lost his victory. Since then, he's seen some pretty rough luck, particularly at Long Beach this year, where he totally dominated, but maybe today this will be his day.
The way they're lined up now. Gilles de Ferran is the leader of the race, and Jim Hall's already said he's going to do everything he can to run to the end, but it might be marginal. There is second place, Alex Zanardi. They're running for the end of the race. Greg Moore sits in third place. Al Unser Jr. is fourth, and Brian Herta, who just came in for a splash of fuel, is now in fifth place. Michael Andretti is out of the race, as is Andre Ribeiro. Let's go to Jack Arute.
And for Michael, all for nothing. You were running so well. What put you out?
I don't know, something in the drivetrain went. It's a real shame because we were running well. Considering where we started, the way we battled ourselves back, and then to go to all this work for nothing. Shame.
Tough break for Michael Andretti, but there's still a hell of a battle out on the racetrack, guys.
Boy, there is. And who's going to run out of fuel and who can make it?
Well, that's a big question, but the big thing right now, I would imagine if they're stretching it, they've got to turn it down and conserve fuel a little bit for Gilles de Ferran. But the other thing was that Alex Zanardi stopped for a splash of fuel. He's going to turn it up and run it as hard as he can and try to close that gap. And that gap is getting narrower by the lap.
Well, try this out. There are 5 laps to go. In the last lap, Zanardi nicked a second off of his time, just crossed the line, 1.56 seconds behind. He is definitely ready to challenge de Ferran at this lap, certainly the beginning of the next lap. 86 are now complete. 4 to go.
There is first and second right there on your screen. The yellow car on the left and the red one right there. That is close.
Greg Moore is third, but he's 15 seconds back from this battle. Another 10 seconds back from that is Al Unser Jr. This is the fight that matters. Boy, what's going through de Ferran's mind? Repeat of last year where he almost had it, but almost wasn't good enough. Enough fuel to make it to the end.
Well, this is really a tactical race right now. These guys are driving as hard as they can, but it depends on where they have that fuel mixture set.
So, Jack, what are they thinking down in the pits for de Ferran?
Well, let's ask the Texan himself. Jim, how close is it going to be?
It's close. We figured we could make it, and it's as close as you want to have it, I'll tell you. We're stretching it, so I don't know. Jill could just have to see if he can hold him. I think he can.
What about the fuel mix? What have you told Jill?
He's as lean as he can go.
Can't get much leaner than that.
Well, with 3 to go, less than 3 now, Jim Hall, the team owner for Gilles de Ferran, an engineer. Of course, he's put together some incredible racing efforts in his day and holds a lot of hope in this young driver. But Zanardi seems to be in the right position. He can run full rich, which means full power, while de Ferran simply is in a defensive posture. Let's go to Jack.
And that is exactly what Chip Ganassi's crew is telling Alex Zanardi on the radio. They keep telling him, wide open, full boost. You can catch him, you can catch him. It almost sounds like they're driving each and every lap here. Wouldn't be surprising. Remember, Chip Ganassi had his best career finish as a driver here at Cleveland.
Jack, just to correct one thing, they've both got their boost up. It's the fuel mixture.
Fuel mixture.
Exactly.
Fuel mixture is wide open on Zanardi. He's okay.
That means it's 100%. And what happens with 100%? More fuel is more power.
You got
Take a look at this. Here is Zanardi as he tries to make the move, and can he hold on to it? They're side by side through the corners. De Ferran doing everything he can to defend.
Oh, that was set up by the back slower car, and he got out in those marbles. Oh, that was a great move.
So the position remains the same as Gilles de Ferran heading for the white flag is trying to hold off Zanardi. This race will come down to the very last lap, and in the final few yards, there's the white flag out. Here's a place that Zanardi can make a move. A little too far back here. There's the turn into the corner.
Gilles locking up a tire there. He was going in as deep as he could so that Zanardi couldn't get up underneath him. Here's another place he's going to try.
Alongside the lakefront, a right-hander, then a left-hander ahead.
Oh, it gets tight from this point on to actually get by. It's really going to be tough now.
2 veterans out of Formula One. De Ferran, the leader of the race. Zanardi chasing. Zanardi won a week ago. De Ferran's not seen a winner's circle since last year at Laguna Seca. Final set of corners. Now it's up to Zanardi.
Oh, I don't know if he's got enough because they're going to pass this slower car. That's Blundell. He doesn't have it.
He's going to end up blocking Zanardi. Zanardi will have to cut the corner hard, but it's not going to be enough. The gamble has paid off. There's Jim Hall, and Alex Zanardi can't get it done. Gilles de Ferran takes the win here at Cleveland. We'll be back to talk with him right after this.
Well, the gamble paid off for Team Hall and the Pennzoil.
Well, what about that? That's what you call a grandstand finish. I told you that Cleveland often provided some great racing, and boy, was that a great race. Sheer joy in the Jim Hall pit. That's their second victory in 2 seasons, coming, as I mentioned earlier, on the back of that victory at Laguna Seca at the end of '95. And just look how much these people enjoy it. There he is, the veteran Jim Hall. He's been racing for, well, himself a long, long time in the 50s and 60s, and as a team owner as well, the Chaparral team. He's been around a very long time. Had a few lean years through the late 80s and the early 90s, but well, the discovery of Gilles de Ferran has meant the resurgence of his team after some lean years, particularly with Teo Fabi in the mid-90s, early 90s rather. And Gilles really set this series alight. Many people in Europe knew he had it in him. Couldn't quite work his way into a Formula 1 drive in the last few years, and was very strong in Formula 3000. But couldn't quite work his way into a Formula 1 ride, as I mentioned. Tested for footwork, and now everybody in IndyCar is talking about him. And there you are, look at the team. The camaraderie exists between the teams as the Ganassi mechanics and the Hall mechanics congratulate each other on a great race. It's as if they did participate in it. They feel they participated in it. They get terribly involved in what they do. They all give themselves and each other high fives after successful pit stops. They get very emotionally involved in the success or failure of their drivers. We saw Michael Andretti, our hearts go out to him. He really does specialize in pulling a miserable face when something goes wrong. And there's Gilles' wife Angela just walked through the back of the shot. She'll be going over to congratulate her husband on a magnificent drive. It's the win he thought he would have had last year, but which was denied him. And this year he's managed to unhook it. Gilles de Ferran, 28 years old, Brazilian, one of many to follow in the footsteps of the great Ayrton Senna. Let's hear from our race winner.
Well, the gamble played off for Jim Hall Racing as Gilles de Ferran has taken the victory here. Back at the start of the race. Now, remember that this is on board de Ferran as they come toward the start. You saw a big puff of white smoke, and here was the cause of that whole thing. De Ferran came right down and tagged the car just ahead of him and has pretty severe damage on the nose. Well, now let's go find out all about the race. Here's Jack Arute.
Well, Gilles de Ferran finally taking his helmet and balaclava off, and Gilles, the heat has taken its toll, but first of all, tell us about the contact early in the race.
I lost a total reference point going into the first turn, and I ended up hitting Andre in the back and locked up all my tires, and there was a lot of vibration. I was able to hold my own there.
This victory, does it vindicate the problems from last year? You really felt this track owed you one.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I like this. I like this track very much, and I mean, it's just nice to come here and win the race on my second try.
You can tell this is exhaustion, but it's happy exhaustion, Gary Gerould.
Well, here's more satisfaction, Jack. He's a rookie, but he doesn't drive like one in this IndyCars. Alex Zanardi, I know you may be a bit disappointed because you gave it everything you could muster and came so close to catching de Ferran. Tell us what those last few laps were like for you.
Well, Gilles, right at the end, I think he had some fuel problems. I mean, fuel consumption. He was running out of fuel, so he had to slow down. But my car was very good today. I just had too much push, which was a bad situation behind traffic, you know, because behind traffic you lose fresh air, and so my performance was dropping down dramatically. I did at least 15 laps behind Bobby Rollas yesterday, so I have to thank him again because I could have started in pole yesterday. Today I could have won the race, but this is racing, and this is good. I'm very happy because I feel like I did a good race anyway.
He loved Portland a week ago. I think he's fallen in love with Cleveland. Nice job.
And he was so gracious at Portland last week, handing a rose to every one of the ladies by his trailer. We've got more interviews. We'll be right back.
So you heard it from the men themselves. Quite comical, really, watching the guys trying to decide which hat to put on Gilles de Ferran. It's one of the amusing things about the IndyCar scene that when they actually have the podium, The drivers stand there, receive the trophies in one hat, and then they have their photos taken, hold up their trophies, and then they put another hat on, and they work through all the associate sponsors of IndyCar, like AC Delco and Goodyear and all the rest of it. It's quite amusing. There's confirmation of the result. The Furin wins from Zanardi. Moore, a great result for Moore and Unser Jr. Brian Herta 5th and Adrian Fernandez 6th. I'm not quite sure where Jimmy Vasser was, but I think he was outside the points. And then in that case, with Unser Jr., yes, he is outside the points. No, he's not, he's 10th. So he still holds the points lead with 102, but it's slim because Unser Jr. has 99, and then Gilles de Ferran has 91. So it could be closer at the top of the IndyCar points table. The next race is in Toronto in 2 weeks' time, and that'll be on the evening after the British Grand Prix. So a great day of motor racing for you there. You can have the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, everyone hoping that Damon Hill will be able to go on and win another home victory, and that would be his 7th race. Their confirmation of the 14th of July. You can see it live and exclusive here on Eurosport. Coming up next, football and the Germany versus Czech Republic game from Wembley. I won't spoil it by telling you the result. This has been James Allen. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.
The IndyCar World Series with Husqvarna Forest and Garden Products.